Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the TEPSA Talk podcast. I'm your host, Todd Neslony, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership here at the Texas Elementary Principals and Supervisors Association. Each week, we bring you different thought leaders from around the world to share a little bit of their experience and ideas to hopefully encourage and inspire you. And today, we have one of my favorite people on, and that is the one, the only, the pirate leader himself, Dave Burgess. Dave, thank you so much for coming on. If they don't know who you are, go ahead and tell them a little about yourself.
Hey, yeah. First of all, thank you so much for having me on, Todd. I love TEPSA. I've had a chance to come to the TEPSA conference a couple times and speak, and would love to come back someday. And so, yeah, I love the work that TEPSA does. That's fantastic. So I'm Dave Burgess. I live in Vancouver, Washington now. I'm the author of Teach Like a Pirate. I'm the president of Dave Burgess Consulting Incorporated. We publish educational books from innovative educators all over the world, including, correct me if I'm wrong, Todd, but I think four projects from our host tonight, Todd Neslony. So we have Kids Deserve It, the OG, the classic, right? When Kids Lead, Sparks in the Dark, and then the Stories of Web. So 4 books with Todd. So it's been an honor to work with you and so many amazing educators.
Well, and that's why I'm so excited for everybody to get to spend this time getting to know you a little bit more, because I've had the opportunity to learn from you over the last, almost decade now. And you've got so many nuggets of wisdom, but let's start from the top. So you're widely known as being the pirate, the author of Teach Like a Pirate, which is a fantastic book for any educator to read. It was one of those that's what drew me to even knowing who you are, because it lit a fire in me to rethink the way I was bringing energy into my classroom and the way that I was designing my lessons and bringing in my own passions. And what I love about that book is when I then became an administrator, I was thinking in the same way, like, these are my new students. This is my new classroom. They're all adults. They are a little bit different, but I can still kind of take so many ideas from this book. So as we dive into this today, give me a little bit of background of where did the Teach Like a Pirate come from, and how did that kind of revolutionize the way even you looked at your teaching and education?
Yeah. So, I mean, to be honest, was born out of necessity. I was working with some really tough students in some tough situations, and I knew that I was either going to find a way to engage these students, or I was going to be burning out and leaving the profession. And so it's kind of like a lot of things that are like Tim Ferriss, famous entrepreneur. He said the best form of entrepreneurship is to scratch your own itch. Like, if you have a problem, you have an issue, you have something, if you can solve that problem, and then now if you can scale it to other people, that's a business, right? And so I had a problem. I needed to engage these kids. And so this was born out of necessity, and I was trying things. And then my department chair came one day and said to me, like, hey, why don't you put all this together in a workshop and provide it for other teachers? Like, so I keep hearing all these crazy stories about what's happening down in your room. Like, why don't you teach this stuff? And so I did. I pulled together everything I had done. I did not have a workshop. I did not have anything organized in any fashion whatsoever, right? And because I said yes before I was ready, when I said yes, I'll do the workshop, I signed up to do a full day workshop, Todd. I wasn't smart. I didn't choose a 1-hour session. I signed up to do a full day, 6-hour workshop for the peers of my district. And then, I drove away from that meeting in a panic, right? And so I got relentless about writing down everything that I did in my classroom that I thought was successful. But then, see, that's not good enough. That's what I do. I had to take a step back further and try to come up with, like, where did these ideas come from to begin with? And why does this one work and not this one? And it forced me to become much more intentional about my teaching. And so that's what I always tell people. If you get a chance, present, sign up for a session, do a session at a conference, maybe in your district, maybe for your school, for your staff. And when you do that, all of a sudden you have to become much more intentional about what you do when you are in the position of having to share that kind of secret sauce, that magic of you with somebody else so that they can replicate it. And so I think that's kind of one of the big leaps in my teaching, was that intentionality. And I realized, like, oh, there's some real patterns here. There's some things behind all this stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's one part of your book that just still resonates with me, and I still talk about this in sessions that I lead and things like that. And that is, if you were to charge kids to come to your class, would they pay to learn from you, to sit in your room that day to hear that? And that has always stuck with me as a teacher. And then as an administrator, the same thing. Would my staff pay to hear that staff meeting or things like that? And so, thinking about that idea of engaging them, when you think about working with adults, which is a little bit different than working with kids, and you work with adults all the time now, what do you see as one of your really go-to ways to engaging adults?
Yeah, well, so first of all, sometimes teachers bristle when a student says, when am I ever going to use this? Or why do I have to know this, right? And teachers get so upset by that comment, right? But if you think about it, isn't that what we expect as adults? We want our learning to be relevant. We want our time spent to be worthwhile, and for us not just to have some like if a teacher said like, why, what is this staff meeting about, and the principal said, don't worry, you just need to know this stuff. Well, no one's going to accept that, right? So if you can't show the relevancy of what you're doing, if you can't show why this is important, why this is significant, then you have a problem. Just like a teacher has a problem with students, same thing with staff. And so it always goes back to this level of engagement and buy-in. And sometimes people push back against my focus on engagement. And I always tell them, hey, listen, it doesn't matter what you say if nobody's listening.
Yeah.
So like if it's, you can talk about all these other fancy things you want, but if nobody's listening, it doesn't matter. It always is going to come back at some level to getting that engagement, that buy-in.
Well, you're someone who really, when you were in the classroom teaching, you were using your own personal passions in that instruction. So I've got to know, what are some things that you are passionate about right now?
Yeah, so I have I have some crazy passions that are maybe I don't share with a whole lot of people maybe that are listening. But for example, I'm passionate about chess. I just watched the World Speed Chess Championship the last couple of days and was fascinated. I watched it for hours. So I love chess. Obviously, I'm passionate about books and reading, learning, all that kind of stuff. I'm passionate about magic. And so, these are all kind of things that I'm looking to try to kind of weave in. Like I use magic a lot in my classroom. And it wasn't because I wanted teachers to become magicians. It's because that was something that was personal to me, that was unique about me. And I always tell people, and this is true for administrators too, what is unique about you, your particular strengths and talents, and your voice that you add to whatever you do is what's always going to make you most powerful and effective with other people, right? Just as it will for a teacher with their students, same thing for a principal or a supervisor with their staff and the adults that they're leading. And so too many people want to try to unplug themselves when they walk in the doors in the building. I'm trying to add more of myself to everything that I do. And I think that's something that administrators can do too. Not only does it make you more effective, more powerful, makes you more excited about going to work that day because you get to share some of yourself as a part of what you do, but also it helps you to build rapport and relationships with people.
Well, and I think you hit something really good there, and that is making sure you bring your passions, because I've seen you present many times, and you usually tie in magic in some way or another, and you can tell you're bringing it in there because you love it. Like you love doing it, so you found a way to incorporate it into the message you're trying to spread. That doesn't mean that I'm so amazed by it that I go out and I'm like, okay, I'm going to use magic in my next presentation. It's like, no, that's not what I'm passionate about. I can love watching you, but I got to bring me into that. And so I guess the question might be is, well, Dave, what if I'm so overwhelmed with work that I don't have time to pursue passions outside of the hours that I'm spending doing everything? What advice would you have for somebody who may have that kind of feedback?
Right. And so, well, first of all, so there's several reasons to get involved with things outside of the world of education. Like I always tell people, read wide, live wide, right? And it's not just from the self-care standpoint. Yes, we want to sometimes unplug from education because we need to be able to fill our buckets, right? We need to be able to come back rested and recharge and all that, right? But not only is it from a self-care standpoint, but it also is going to give you that creative ammunition from other areas of your life to bring back into your school system. And so if you think about the book Teach Like a Pirate, there's something very strange about it that not everybody picks up on. There is not one single education book referenced inside of it. Not a single one. Not because I don't like education books, Todd. You know I love them. I've published over 200 of them, right? Yeah. So I love education books. It's just that that's not where it came from. Yeah. It was always from the outside drawn in. My background as a coach influenced how I teach. My background as a magician, my background as a marketer and entrepreneur, as an MC, like all these things came together to create the best me, right? And all these things gave me creative ammunition from outside of education to bring inside of education. And so always looking around the world and saying, one of the key questions I have teachers ask, and I would ask admin to ask is, how can I use that? Like always looking around the world and saying, like, what is drawing people in right now? How can I use that? Maybe you're not going to use that thing directly, but maybe the principle behind what makes it engaging for people, you're going to be able to use in your classroom. And so it's kind of just, again, having that read wide, live wide kind of philosophy of looking at the world.
I love that. And I think it really broadens your own perspectives and gives you a different way to connect with your people when you're reading wide and living wide, as you said. Well, as somebody who works with adults on a daily basis, I know you bring a lot of energy. You bring a different style. You bring all these cool things to engage people. But I know in every presentation that you do, there's somebody who's not engaged, who doesn't want to be there, who it's clear on their face, their behavior. Just like as an administrator, there's meetings I'm going to lead or things like that where somebody is not engaged, they don't want to be there. As somebody who does this for a living, how do you not let that face in the crowd or that body language bother you, knowing that you're doing everything you can and this one particular person or this small group just does not want to engage?
Right. So my first take on this is going to be some real talk. Sometimes it does bother me. So I still to this day, sometimes I'm bothered by that. Right. So that's the truth of the matter. But I think like a healthier answer to that is that a lot of times we personalize things that are happening in our classroom, our school, or with our staff, and a lot of times it has nothing to do with us. It has nothing to do with our initiative. It has nothing to do with the lesson that we're teaching that day as a teacher, and like that. And like sometimes, like if you knew what a kid went through to get into your classroom in third period that day, and you might be not as shocked that they're not so concerned about the finer details of the Spanish-American War. And so we are kind of have this very egocentric view sometimes, like our stuff is so important. It's so like central to the world because it's central to so important to us that we expect to be important to other people. But again, a lot of times it really has nothing to do with us. It's just what those people might be going through at that time. And then as far as adults, especially, I use something called the snowball analogy sometimes. And like, if you want to change the culture of a school system, you're coming into a school system, you want to change the culture, you want to have some sort of initiative move forward. And I say, like, if you wanted to build a giant snowball, that'll be like our sort of metaphor for like whatever it is, your cultural change that you want. How would you do? If you went out into the snow and you tried to grab it all up in your arms at one time, what would happen? It would just crumble away from you and you wouldn't get in, you wouldn't have anything, right? That's not the way you build a giant snowball. The way you build a giant snowball is you get a little bit in your hands and you pack it tight and you shape it. And you mold it, and then you add a little bit more to it, a little bit more to it. Eventually it gets big enough where you can set it on the ground and you can roll it and everything starts to stick. And you can build, that's the only way really you build a giant snowball. The same thing is true of changing the culture of school or an initiative. You can't announce change from the podium and expect everybody to build. Change is built at a grassroots level. And when you are trying to make a change on your campus, you're always trying to find the people that do want to be a part of something new, do want to be a part of something innovative. And you focus your energy there. You work with that group, and the enthusiasm that spreads from that group starts to attract other people in, and eventually gets big enough where you can roll it out through your whole system. Mm-hmm. But too many people, too many administrators, I believe, allow their energy to be dissipated by the apathy and negativity in certain very remote corners of their campus. Maybe it might be a loud corner. Yeah, but it's not a big corner, but it's a loud corner, right? And if you allow all of your energy to constantly be dissipated by these people, or not to do big things, not to try innovative things because of this voice over here, then you're never going to get anywhere. You always look for the people that do want to go with you. Look for those people that can be a part of that initial snowball, and then build from there. Like when somebody will contact me, Todd, and say like, hey, I want to do a book study at my school. Like, do you think you would Zoom with us? The only problem is we only have 5 people and we just meet at lunchtime in the staff lounge. Yeah. Like, you probably don't want to do it. I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course I want to do it. That's where it always starts. Yeah. Every single school that's had like a Teach Like a Pirate initiative, it's always started with some small little group of like 5 or 6 teachers that do a book study or something. And then I know if I can get them excited about it, they're going to bring other people in, right? And so that's the same. That's the way I think for admin too is make sure you find those people that want to be a part of something new and really focus your energy there.
Well, I think the advice you shared just now, just working with administrators from across the country, that it's very important advice for them to hear. Like, this is a part of the podcast. I'm like, I'm gonna replay this for me, just because it is easy to let those negative or loud voices just cloud your vision, and make you feel like we can't move forward or I don't know what to do. But I love that advice. It's just like a snowball. You've got to start with a small group anyway, pack it in, and it will grow and grow and grow. But I think something else you said was really powerful for me personally. And I just got to say, hearing you say that sometimes it bothers you too, knowing how much energy you're putting in and somebody is just not feeling it. They're not checked in. And I'm just like, oh, that gives me so much validation, because I can feel it bother me. Now, I don't let it derail me. But I think that was really powerful to hear that kind of vulnerability from you. So I appreciate you sharing that. Well, Dave, I know you're working with people from all over the world all the time. And I know you're seeing all sides of education and hearing all the great things that are happening, all the struggle people are going through, knowing that there are principals and assistant principals and superintendents and supervisors from across the state of Texas who are going to be listening to this conversation. What is something you really want them to hear from you?
Yeah, so I think it's that you need to make sure that you're embracing the mightier purpose of being an educator and understanding that the content that we're delivering, of course, is important. The curriculum is, of course, important, but it's just the tip of the iceberg of really the life-changing role that you all have with students and your staff, and through your staff, your students on your campus. And even though, again, those loud voices, they're out there. They're very easy to be distracted by. Because someone is loud, it makes you think that there's a lot of them. That's not always the case, but there's a huge group of people who are wildly passionate and supportive of educators, administrators, and the work that we do in classrooms. And all the way over here from Vancouver, Washington, far away from Texas, I'm one of them. I love the work that y'all are doing in your school systems. And I'm just one of many people who are behind you. And so just because a few people are allowed maybe at a board meeting or something like that, don't let them distract you from the incredible and amazing work that you do.
I love it. Well, if you're listening right now and you're feeling as inspired as I am, Dave Burgess's book, Teach Like a Pirate, is available everywhere live right now. Even the Audible version, if you want to hear Dave read it himself, you can check that out. It's a great, fantastic resource to share with your teachers. If you're wanting to build up that engagement, that excitement to kind of revolutionize the way things look on your campus, you can also head over to daveburgess.com to check out all the information about Dave. Dave speaks and presents and works with schools all the time. So you can also connect with him if you're looking to bring him in or help you out with the book study, as he just shared as well. Dave, is there anywhere else they can connect with you?
Yeah, so for sure, if you're an Twitter or X person, I'm at Burgess Dave. If you are an Instagram person, I'm DBC_INC. I have a podcast called The Dave Burgess Show. And I have to add this, Todd, because it's just so recent and exciting for us at DBC. We just had a chance to partner with one of the most iconic, legendary educators in the world, Ron Clark. And so co-founder of the Ron Clark Academy. And we just put out his new book called Be 1% Better, Surprisingly Simple Ways to Transform Your Schools. It's for everyone on your staff. It's not just for teachers, it's for admin. The 1% better mentality can be the custodial staff, office assistants, counseling, everything. And so to get a chance to partner with Ron Clark and to write the foreword for that book is just a true honor.
Well, and I've already bought my copy, and I cannot wait to dive in, because Ron was so instrumental in me as a teacher as well. But that reminded me, I can't close without asking this. You also are going to be publishing the book of the namesake of the TV show, Abbott Elementary, as well. Can you give us a little kind of preview of that?
Absolutely. So in Philadelphia, one of the most legendary teachers, educators, her name is Joyce Abbott. And Joyce Abbott is the one who was when Quentin Brunson came up with the concept for Abbott Elementary School. The reason why it's called Abbott Elementary School is because it's like a shout out to her former teacher, Joyce Abbott. And we had the amazing opportunity to sign Joyce to a book contract and to work on that project with her. And I'm actually going back to Philadelphia at the end of the month for the book launch party. And it's coming out January 28th, or excuse me, September 28th, 2024. So September 28th. And it's about teaching the real Miss Abbott way. And it's going to be amazing. And she has an incredible story. She was in the military. And so she has kind of some of that military mentality, but then also some of the educational mentality, some of the working with inner city youth mentality, all these things kind of mixed together to create this powerful educator. And she's going to be sharing her story in that book.
So whether you buy a book by Dave Burgess or Ron Clark's new book or Joyce Abbott that's coming out at the end of this month, there's so many great learning opportunities out there. Dave, thank you so much for choosing to be on tonight on our TEPSA Talk podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening to another episode. Remember, if you are a pre-K through 8th grade, yes, junior high and middle as well, leader, superintendent, or supervisor in the state of Texas, TEPSA is the home for you. Head on over to tepsa.org to get more information today and join us next week for an all-new conversation.